do as a society to better enhance inclusion?
Access to financing.
Okay.
Yes. I think there are a lot of women out there that are willing to drive. There are a lot of women
Hi, I am Weyinmo. Welcome to the Purple Diaries, the Policy Innovation Center's podcast series that takes a deep dive into the conversations and dialogues that we had at the Gender and Inclusion Summit 2025. Through the course of this podcast, we'll be sitting down with incredible individuals, people who are impacting the world and changing the way that we see it. Now, let's take a deep dive into this conversation. So ensure to subscribe, like, share, and comment.
So you're welcome to the Purple Diaries. It's such an honor to have you here today. You work with a mobility tech organization, and they brought innovation into mobility and transportation in Nigeria. Now, and globally too, yes. Now, from your own opinion, how has your organization helped to enhance inclusion within our society? You know, inclusion as it regards to gender, inclusion as regards to PWDs.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
On your podcast, Purple Diaries. First time here.
Yeah.
An impressive setup.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. To your question, when Bolt came into the market, we were first seen as disruptive technology. So that's how we're labeled, disruptive technology, but in a good way, right? We came to do what people thought was impossible to do in Nigeria and in Africa at large, which is bring some level of organization to the public transport sector. We had a bit of resistance from the traditional taxis and buses. We also had resistance from the regulators. But with time, when they came to understand our business, right, and came to understand the kind of for the lack of a better word, sanity. And for the kind of sanity that we could bring into the sector, they became more receptive of the platform companies. And then the second thing that we saw was impact, right? So there was a lot of entrepreneurship building. We were able to get people more on the platform. At that time when we came in, there was recession. There was a recession in Nigeria, and a lot of bankers had lost their job. So all of them, they took up the ride-hailing jobs, and they brought the professionalism to the business, and that was what gave it a big spike. And everyone started trusting in platform companies, because it was weird to just put on your phone and then you're able to book a ride, and a stranger is picking you up, someone you don't know, right? And so it was a bit funny. But when they now start hearing, oh, it's ex-bankers, it's this, it's that, it put a bit of confidence into the business, and also it's a global platform, right? So that gave it a bit of credence. Now, moving forward, when we started, it was just about taking a trip, sharing your trip, and just taking a trip and doing your face checks and number checks, right? And over the years, we've been able to self-regulate and improve on what we have in right now in Nigeria. So what we do right now is a lot of safety awareness campaigns. Safety first is very important, because safety would now lead to inclusivity, right? It would also now lead to driver trainings and then inclusion of the PWDs and women. So we started with safety, getting the drivers and changing their orientation on what safety meant and how to just take a ride. We do a lot of driver trainings. Sometimes Nigeria is very hot, and we realize that, everyone is just reacting, right? So we have to continue and constantly, train our drivers and talk to them, so teach them how to customer relate. That's one thing that's very important, because from just a little miscommunication, then it breaks out with issues. There's fight, there's anger, there's blows, and then that's what leads to the harassment. That's what leads to assault. So a lot of talking to them and control, and getting them to understand, human behavior, and giving them behavioral skills training. So that's what we put in place. And then regarding safety, we introduced the emergency button. That's where we started from. So if you're on a boat trip, you're able to click on an emergency button, and it would activate our 24/7 customer support, and it would also trigger the state police and safety number. So you can do that, and they're responsive. So we had our back-end engagement with them, and we've seen a lot of improvement in that regard. We've also introduced the driver verification. So we're a lot of profiling, a lot of criminal background check. All of that happens in the background to ensure that we know who is actually getting on the platform. We also introduced trip anomaly. So you're on a trip and it goes quiet. Maybe the driver is not moving in the right direction or there's delayed movement. Then they call you to say, or they send a message to say, are you okay? Is everything fine? We've noticed you haven't moved in like 2 or 5 minutes. Is it good? No, in 5 minutes, because we have to give it 5 minutes because of traffic or anything. When we notice that, okay, things are moving around this person and you haven't moved, so we reach out to find out if you're okay. We've now also introduced trip recording. So when you're on a trip, if anything is about to happen, or even if nothing happens, and you just feel like, sometimes you just sense that this person might be, funny, you can just do your audio trip recording. Immediately you start a ride. And then if anything happens, you have 24 hours to report it because because of data privacy, we can't keep that for more than 24 hours. So we have that, kept, and then you can report your case if anything happens, and that can be evidence that is used. Because when we have issues like that, we have the police asking us for evidence. So we have to keep that kind of data if there's anything reported and shared with the police. And then we've also introduced rider verification. So it's no longer about the safety of the rider, the riders anymore. We're also taking deep consideration of drivers. So the drivers are now able to know who their passengers are. But right now, that is still an optional category. It's still an optional thing because it has to be a uniform thing. It has to be across all platforms. Because of demand issues. So you don't see losing your customers to another platform. And we're working with our regulators to see how they can make it, a regulation to ensure that everyone across board has that implemented. So now with these things in place, we can now say to women, okay, come on the platform. We're putting some safety measures, right? And in all honesty, we actually have female drivers. There are some that are so bold that they even do only night trips. And right. And then there's some that, prefer daytime trips. And we have a lot of female programs that we do, just trying to understand what they face on the platform. We always do outreaches. And one thing that we found is the men that bully. So you can get a man, so you can take him to his destination, and then he says, oh, I don't have money, I need to quickly use the ATM, and then he disappears. Right? And then we're wondering, they can't chase after, they can't fight. We just say, we'll just report that trip, and then we compensate them the amount that they lost. That's that. Then we're also teaching them, they have trainings in tactical driving, emergency response, safety. So we do a lot of that and a lot of those interactions. But I say one thing that we've done again is trying to see if we can get access to financing. The barrier to entry for financing is really high in Nigeria. And even when they say they're doing programs for women, that barrier is still so high. So that's something we're actually trying to tackle as well. And then regards to PWD, it's a lot of education. A lot of education. Because everybody's out there to hustle. And in all honesty, when they get there and they're like, I have to do this, I have to do that, they're like, they just cancel the trip. So what we are trying to do now is when we get that report, so we're collating data, and we've now started a lot of driver education. 2 years ago, we launched the Bolt Accelerator program, and it was more about inclusivity in the ride-hailing sector and bringing innovation to the sector. So we sponsored drivers and gave them seed funding to start businesses. And we focused on drivers that wanted to help women or do something innovative towards improving transportation for women and PWDs. So we're monitoring those businesses. So it's just to encourage, how do they get access to these ramps? How do they fit it onto their car? Who is bearing that cost? How can we support them with this cost, right? And then awareness. And hopefully in time, we'll be able to create the category of for just PWDs. That's where we're going. We've started that globally, so they have to test it, and then we will now bring it down to Nigeria because you have to just test it. We have to get data. So we recently started working with the ministry, the PWD Association. So we're working with them to now start collating data to understand what their needs are. So eventually we will get there. Then for women as well. So it's just something where there's a lot of training that we need to do regarding bias, right? Understanding that women are perfect and they're great drivers. Because we started a women-only category, but we had to shut it down because of the bias of, women can't drive, or I don't want woman wahala, things like that. And we also saw women out there not wanting to take rides that were just women. So a female driver comes and, they're like, they've cancelled it.
Wow.
Like, but you're a woman now, you should feel more comfortable and be like, no. Let me. So that bias in the market as well is something that we're working and we're trying to tackle. So by doing a lot of trainings and putting a lot of education, really putting it out there.
All right, thanks so much for that response. Now, in order to expand this conversation, I would like to know, what do you think, as a professional in the transportation industry, what are your suggestions to improve and enhance inclusion of both the female persons and also people with disability? What do you think we need to do as a society to better enhance inclusion?
Access to financing.
Okay.
Yes. I think there are a lot of women out there that are willing to drive. There are a lot of women out there that are ready to take it on. So if they have access to financing, we will see a lot more female drivers. The second thing is balancing, right? A lot of women that drive on our platform, they work at times where, kids are in school, then they go for pickup, they come back, they work, So that balancing effect is another thing they're trying to sort out. Okay. But even with that, they're still able to, and they're not able to do a lot of work to raise the capital they need to get an asset. Okay. So if we're able to identify these women and provide them access to financing, right, that would really go a long way for women. The second thing is the vehicles. Okay. We have let me speak for myself. Where do we get these vehicles for PWDs? How do we even access them? Where is the knowledge about it? Where are we training on this? Where do we go to know that, we need to get a vehicle, we need to build a ramp, are we even bringing in this kind of vehicles? Yeah. Right? So those are the questions. Are there incentives? If I say today that I want to be a fleet company that is going to bring in 20 vehicles that support PWDs, am I going to get a waiver on tax, on import duty, sorry. Yeah. So, these are things that, these kind of incentives would actually help grow this community and help us bring, inclusivity into the transport sector. Yeah. And then the last bit will be safety and security.
It's okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the Purple Diaries. It's been an honor hosting you, and we're looking forward to another beautiful conversation like this sometime in the near future.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah.